How you guys doing, man? Welcome back to another episode of the Darrel Long channel, hosted by me, Darrel Long. And before I get into this video, I want to let you guys know that everything in this video traces back to one event, and that event is Ben Crump's press conference at the NAACP National Convention in Chicago this morning, where he released Dr. Mitchell's preliminary independent autopsy findings. Now, some key words that we're going to be talking about today is preliminary and independent, because this was an independent autopsy report, and the official Mississippi autopsy has not yet been released. Now, nothing here is confirmed. Nothing here has confirmed a cause of death. Nothing here has been determined officially. I'm going to try not to use words like murder or killed or homicide as a fact anywhere today in this video. The furthest that I can go is say that we cannot rule out those things. I cannot rule out that it was murder or that it was a homicide or that he was killed, but I can't say it indefinitely. So with that being said, I want to go to a video. I'm gonna play the whole video for you guys, and then we'll get back to everything I have to say about Nolan Wells.
Either side with microphones, please announce your name and your media outlet if you have any questions. We're going to be quick because we have other programming going on in real time. We'll go here first.
Hi, everybody. Samantha Chapman, ABC7 Chicago. You just unveiled a comprehensive outline of the independent report. Can you summarize for our viewers? Because there's a lot to take in, a lot of information. So in summary, can you succinctly tell us what we can take away from this report? And also, if you can provide more details about the neck.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people behind me gasping when that detail was mentioned.
Yeah, let me try to be very comprehensive. As Dr. Roger Mitchell said, that the focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, the occipital region, is significant because he cannot determine why you have that red discoloration in the back of his brain. That's significant. He also talked about just the fact that, as it's common practice, he was missing his throat when they received the body. And he wants to know why they held it back. He's not drawing any conclusions, but he said he would want to examine it if there were neck fractures or compressions to the neck. And he thinks that's significant to know at autopsy. The reason he said he would hold it back when he was medical examiner, because he thought that there may have been some issues with neck fracture. The last thing that is significant is what we said before about him, the condition of his body when he went into the water. Was he conscious or unconscious? Was he forced or unforced into the water? He said those things are very significant. But he started off talking about this red discoloration in the back of his head is something that was of great concern to him.
So 3 weeks ago, an 18-year-old kid went on a boat trip for the 4th of July, and 2 days later, he was dead. This morning in Chicago, at the NAACP National Convention, Ben Crump stood up and told the country something that is more than likely going to make you angry. And it's going to make you ask questions that need to be asked. But I need you to hold on to something with me before we get into that. What we have to talk about right now is preliminary. It's independence, right? The fact that we're allowed to get these independent autopsies, I think that we need to do this more often when something like this happens, especially if it grabs national attention. It raises questions that the state of Mississippi may have never answered for the public. If you're just tuning in, guys, this is the Nolan Wells case. Let's go through exactly everything that has been reported, right? From this independent autopsy. We have to also go over Dr. Roger, I think his name Roger Mitchell's, Dr. Mitchell's findings, and what does it mean and what exactly doesn't it mean. All right. With that being said, we're going to call this video today Nolan Wells, the missing throat, independent autopsy findings. Let's get directly into the video, you guys.
Welcome to the Darrel Long Show, bringing you the best in commentary, vlogs, video essays, and reactions.
So first, let's talk about who exactly was Nolan Wells. Let's back up for a second and for anybody who is just now finding this story, even though that would be hard to believe, I'm going to recap it. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old young man. On 4th of July, he took a boat trip with a group of friends out to what's called Horn Island, Mississippi. This is off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, okay? At some point that afternoon, he stayed behind, and the story from his friends is that he wanted to go talk to a girl and he planned to head back inland with a different group. Okay. Nolan Wells never made it home. His mother reported him missing around midnight. 2 days later, on July 6th, his body was found by the United States Park Rangers floating near Horn Island. Initial read was this. They said that Nolan Wells had drowned, that there was no signs of foul play, and Nolan's funeral was held on Tuesday. The next morning, which was yesterday, as I'm scripting this video now, today, when you're watching it, his family's attorney held that press conference that we just watched to release the results of a second independent autopsy. And that's what I want to break down with you guys today. Okay, so let's go ahead and get directly into it. Segment 2. Why was there a second autopsy to begin with? Now, I'm going to change this up real quick, guys. Give me 1 second. I like looking at this camera over here more. So here's something you need to understand about how these cases work. Families are allowed to commission their own independent autopsy report. It happens more than people will actually realize, especially in cases where families don't trust the initial findings from the state. Now, Nolan Wells' mother raised concerns almost immediately. Among them, an allegation that messages were deleted from his phone after he was found dead. But it's part of why the family didn't, or sorry, cut. Redoing that whole thing over. Cut from Nolan's mother raised concerns. Okay, so let's start where we are. Let's start from Nolan Wells' mother. Action. Nolan Wells' mother raised concerns almost immediately. Among them, an allegation that messages were deleted from Nolan Wells' phone after he was found dead. And this is a very serious claim. It is, as of this video, unconfirmed and alleged, but it's part of why the family did not simply accept the drowning, no foul play as a final word. So they brought in their own forensic pathologist, Dr. Mitchell, and they did a second autopsy, and the second autopsy was funded by Colin Kaepernick. Now, Ben Crump, we all know him. He's the civil rights attorney. He represented families like Trayvon Martin. He represented families like George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and he's also representing Nolan Wells' family. And that's the why. Why did we have to get a second autopsy? That's the why. Now let's get into the what. That's section 3. Segment 3, we're going to title that the findings. What Dr. Mitchell actually said, right? Now, this is really where things start to get interesting, in my opinion, because Ben Crump released a preliminary report this morning. I want to walk through this point by point because the headlines are often going to basically skew these points for their own purposes. That's just the fact. And I don't want to do that in my video. Let's start at point, the bottom line. Cause and manner of death are still undetermined. Pending further investigations, because the autopsy report, it has some things we have to talk about. But the official language as of today is it is not a homicide. There is no confirmed drowning. This is undetermined as of right now, as of me recording this video. Point 2, the back of the head. During what's called the posterior head, I hope I got that right, the posterior and neck dissection, basically that's examining the back of the skull and the neck in detail. Dr. Mitchell found a 12 by 8 inch area of red discoloration in the soft tissue over the back of the skull. No cuts to the skin, no skull fractures. Now, important context, because I want to be fair here. Discoloration like that can often happen from blood pulling after a death, especially depending on how the body is positioned. Dr. Mitchell himself said the cause of the discoloration is still unclear. Dr. Mitchell also said he could not determine whether this happened at a certain time. He cannot determine the time that Nolan Wells died. Sorry, he couldn't determine that time based on the autopsy report because the body had been significantly decomposed by the time of the second exam, which is why we have to start allowing Black people to do these exams ourselves. But here's the part that really matters to me. He said, Dr. Mitchell said that it was significant enough to flag a further investigation. And he pointed out something important, that this should have been caught in the first autopsy by the state of Mississippi, because when you do a head and neck dissection, you would easily find that. But according to Dr. Mitchell, the first autopsy never actually performed a neck and head dissection. That left me astonished, because how are you doing an autopsy on a body, but you're also not looking at their head, not looking at their neck? I want you guys to really sit with that for a second. A specific type of examination wasn't done the first time, but when it was done the second time by Black people, it turned up a 12 by 8 inch gap missing in the back of his damn head. Let's go to point 3. And this is the one that people are going to be talking about, which is the missing throat. When Nolan Wells' body arrived for the second autopsy, key structures of his neck were not in it. I believe this is pronounced the trachea, but let me go to Gemini just to be sure. Gemini, explain to me the part of Nolan Wells' neck that was not found. It's spelled Trachea.
When Nolan Wells' family commissioned an independent autopsy, forensic pathologist Drive, Roger Mitchell reported that internal neck structures, including the trachea, windpipe, were missing from the remains. Because the Mississippi State Medical Examiner had already performed the initial autopsy, organs and anterior neck tissues had been removed for routine testing and kept by the state. A standard medical examiner practice that unfortunately prevented the second pathologist from checking for signs of strangulation or examining the airway for evidence of drowning.
Save that into a Samsung Note for me, please.
I've saved that information into a Samsung Note titled Nolan Wells Trachea Explanation.
Now we know it's pronounced trachea. Now, Gemini said that it more than likely was removed during the first examination, but it wasn't brought to our knowledge, the public. Gemini made it clear that the second autopsy would not be able to see if, Nolan Wells was strangled because of his neck being removed, gone, not provided to Dr. Mitchell, who has, Dr. Mitchell, who as a experienced chief medical examiner, as a Black man, he said that his assumption was that, again, the original Mississippi pathologist retained those parts of Nolan Wells' body. He also said that that's actually common practice when there's concern about neck fractures or compression, etc., etc. So when you read that back and you read into the notes, a structure, a parts of the body, specifically the neck in this situation, gets held back typically when there's a concern about neck injury. And Ben Crump said nobody told Dr. Mitchell why it was held back. They never came to Dr. Mitchell and said, this is why we kept Nolan Wells' neck. So now I believe that Nolan Wells was strangled, but I can't run with that language because as of today, the case is undetermined. Because of those parts being missing, Dr. Mitchell said that he could not rule out any injury to the neck as a contributor to or the cause of Nolan Wells' death. He could also not examine the airway of the neck for water to see if he drowned. Dr. Mitchell also said, based on the second autopsy report that was independently funded by Colin Kaepernick, that he could not check the stomach for contents in the stomach to see if he had been poisoned or something like that. Both of which matter in a case where someone may have been drowned, right? We can look for contents of alcohol in the stomach to see if he was drinking that day. We can look up contents of edibles to see if he had been taking edibles that day on the boat, because that's literally how we need we need to look at this. We need all the facts in order to confirm whether or not he even drowned or not. So they don't have all of that information there because of the state of Mississippi removing parts of his body and keeping it the second pathologist, which is Dr. Mitchell. My fourth point is that there hasn't been no toxicology yet. Now, Dr. Mitchell said that he hasn't received word of the original toxicology results. That will happen when they go into the stomach and see if there was alcohol in the stomach, drugs, et cetera, et cetera. There hasn't been no toxicology report from neither Nolan Wells or the other individuals involved. Point 5 is foul play. Local officials said early on there was no signs of it, that Dr. Mitchell's position, people just simply can't rule it out. They can't rule out that there may be foul play going on with Nolan Wells' case, right? He can't exclude the possibility of, accidental factors contributing to his death, but he also can't exclude the possibility of non-accidental factors contributing to his death. Point 6. And Ben Crump said this directly. The real question isn't what happened in the water. It's what happened before the water. The report could not determine whether Nolan Wells was conscious or unconscious when he went into the water, which is a very, very, very big point for the entire investigation. They could not determine whether or not he was forced into the water, he jumped in and simply got pushed away with the tides. And they are calling that the crux of the matter. If we can figure out whether he went into the water unconscious or conscious, if we can figure out if he was pushed in or if he simply, was brushed away by the waves, this will help us figure out if it's foul play or if it was just a natural incident. So let's get into segment 4, right? Because that was segment 3 with all of my major points. Let's get into segment 4. And segment 4 is, what does this mean? What does this tell us? And what does this not tell us when it comes to the situation surrounding Nolan Wells? I want to be very disciplined here, because this is the exact kind of story that gets away from people online in about 6 hours, 5 or 7 hours. People don't care about this no more. People are going to paint it as whites versus blacks, and nobody's going to be talking about the independent pathologist and his findings, and how his findings, like the blunt force trauma in the back of the head, the fact that there was not a complete neck to examine, parts of his body were missing. What we do not know is this. We do not know that Nolan Wells was killed, nor do we know if this was accidental. We do not know if this was like any foul play. There's a lot of suspicion, but we don't know. We don't know if anything ever happened to him or if he just simply fell off a boat and drowned. We cannot rule out either possibility. To me, the undetermined cause of death shouldn't lead people to say that he was killed, because we don't have any proof that he was killed so far. But here's what's fair play to say plainly. The original autopsy did not include the exam that this second independent autopsy found. The official results still have not been made public, and nobody has explained on the record why parts of a teenager's neck is missing, and they were not sent along with his body for a second independent review by the state of Mississippi. Those are legitimate questions. Asking them is not the same as convicting anyone in the comment sections. It's simply us asking, why were not these parts of his body sent? Segment 5, I am calling the bigger picture. and we're almost close to wrapping this up. So this case has put in national attention fast, from Reverend Al Sharpton and Tyler Perry, both each putting up $50,000 for information leading to an arrest and conviction, which tells you how serious people are when it comes to treating the possibility of this not being an incident and him actually being killed. Celebrities are putting up money to figure out who actually did this. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there is not a racial element to this story in this case, because there is. We have an 18-year-old black teenager found dead off the coast of Mississippi, of all places. And the first thing that white people are saying, well, there is no foul play, despite this happening in a state like Mississippi that has the history that Mississippi has. And people are going to be skeptical and ask hard questions. That's just the facts. This is not manufactured outrage. This is not fake outrage. This is earned skepticism built over generations of cases where the first answer isn't an answer at all. Ben Crump is a fucking loser in my opinion, but whatever, whatever. But Ben Crump is now calling on Mississippi law enforcement to share their official autopsy findings with Dr. Mitchell and his team. And he wants Dr. Mitchell included when, if not immediately, in a Mississippi grand jury hearing for this case, which I think that, Dr. Mitchell should be brought under trial. He should be brought on stand to talk about this situation. In closing, here's where we sit. We have the cause of death being undetermined. We have unexplained markings on the back of a teenager head. We have a missing throat that nobody was able to examine as far as Dr. Mitchell's team in the second autopsy report. And that doesn't lead us any closer to a verdict. That's a list of open questions that we have, and these questions deserve real answers, not bullshit. Bullshit coming from the state of Mississippi. And on the record, we, like 3 weeks ago, they was doing an autopsy report and said nothing came back, and now we find out that half of his head basically was missing. The boy throat missing. Y'all don't want to give it to other people to examine. I'm going to keep following this situation, guys, as official results come out, hopefully. And if you guys want to stay on top of this, please subscribe. Please support the channel. The Cash App is $DLon316. Turn on your notifications, and I'll have the next update the moment there is something real to report, if not before. And I'm going to end this video by saying justice for Nolan Wells starts with the truth. Justice for Nolan Wells starts with the truth. Let's stay patient enough to get the real truth and not spew narratives online about a dead teenager. With that being said, I'm out of here, man. Sem God, peace.